It is finally soup season, so no better way to celebrate than to share with you 5 of my favorite soup recipes. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make chicken tortilla soup, broccoli cheddar soup, vegetable soup with bacon, loaded potato soup, and minestrone soup. So sit back, relax, get a cup of coffee or a glass of iced tea, and let me show you how to make all these delicious soups. They're all super easy. I know you can do it. And with these recipes, you're going to be able to get through the winter making my favorite soups. And I know they're going to be your favorite soups too. So let's get started with chicken tortilla soup. So this soup is packed with flavor and it is so easy to make. I have my Dutch oven out ready to go. It's basically a one-pot meal. I am gonna hand fry some little crispy tortilla strips to put on the top of my soup. So to get started on my chicken tortilla soup, I'm gonna dice up 1 medium onion. My onion is huge, so I'm only gonna use a half, and I have the heat going under my Dutch oven at medium high because I want it ready to go when I come over with my diced onion. Now for the diced onion, I do dice it up really small. I don't want to bite into chunks of onion in my soup. You can leave yours as chunky as you want to though, because it's your soup. So my Dutch oven's pretty warm. I'm going to put just a little zhuzh of some olive oil in there and add my diced onions. To that, I'm going to add a half of a can of fire roasted green chilies that are already diced in the can. And I'm going to cook the onions and the chilies over medium heat for about 3 to 4 minutes until they start to get soft. Ready to move on to the next step, I'm going to add minced garlic, equivalent to 3 cloves. I love the minced garlic in this tube. It tastes just like freshly chopped garlic, and honestly, I like it better. So 3 tablespoons. And I'm going to stir that around and let that cook for about 1 minute until the garlic is fragrant. Then we'll move on with the soup. At this point, I'm going to add in 6 cups of chicken broth. Two cans of crushed tomatoes, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, some freshly cracked black pepper, about a half a teaspoon worth, and about a half a teaspoon of kosher salt. Give this a really good stir. Then add 3 to 4 chicken breasts that are already cleaned. Mine are pretty good size, so I'm only going to use 3. And just lay them on the bottom of the Dutch oven. And then I want to turn the heat up and bring my soup to a boil. My soup has come to a boil. I'm going to turn this down medium-low, let it cook away for another 25 minutes. It's going to simmer, it's going to reduce, it's going to get rid of a lot of the moisture in the soup, and then we'll proceed on. Alrighty, so my soup has been cooking for 25 minutes, and you can see how much has evaporated out of the pot, but my chicken is fully cooked. So I'm going to turn off the heat at this point and get some tongs and pull out my chicken breast and put them in a big dish. And I'm going to take 2 forks and just kind of shred my chicken apart. I love the consistency of shredded chicken. I absolutely would not cut this on a cutting board. You don't want cubed or diced chicken. You just want beautiful shreds. So I'm going to add all of my shredded chicken back into my soup. Give it a good stir around. And this is when you want to taste it for seasoning. If you want more salt and pepper, if you want to add some sriracha or more chili powder or cumin, now's the time to do it. So add in the juice from 1 lime, which is equivalent to about a tablespoon or so. You can always add more into your bowl if this is not enough for you. And give that a stir. You can turn down the heat a little bit, just let it hang out, and we're gonna fry some tortilla strips to top our soup. So while my chicken tortilla soup is over here doing its thing, I'm gonna start prepping my corn tortillas. These are white corn tortillas. You could use yellow corn, honestly doesn't matter. Just lay these out on a cutting board. You can use a knife. I'm gonna use my pizza cutter and just cut them in strips. Then we're gonna drop them in hot oil. They just take a second to cook. Sprinkle them with a little bit of kosher salt, and this is the most fantastic topping to your chicken tortilla soup. So if you're interested in any of the kitchen appliances I use to make my soup, I will link my Dutch oven below and a lot of the things that I use all the time I make soup, a lot of my favorites. Links will be in the description box. So while my soup is just simmering away over there waiting for me, I'm also cooking some white rice back here because I want that to add into my soup. And I'm gonna take a decently sized saucepan, turn it on medium-high heat, and I'm gonna fill it with half neutral oil and half olive oil. Okay, so my oil, I think, is hot. Let's give it a try. I'm gonna drop in the tortilla strips that I cut up earlier. We're gonna do this in kind of smallish batches. These will fry up super quick, just about a minute a batch. You want to take them out when they're gold and brown and crispy and hit them with a little bit of kosher salt. Make sure to put them on a plate that is lined with a paper towel to absorb any of that grease. Really great chicken tortilla soup really is all about the toppings. You've got to have the fresh, warm, salty, fried tortilla strips, cheddar cheese, sour cream, sliced avocado, and I like to put a little bit of white rice in my bowl before I ladle my soup on top. It just thickens up the soup, makes it a little bit more hearty, gives it some oomph to the soup because tortilla soup just on its own can be pretty liquidy. And I'm gonna add some cheddar cheese, a dollop of sour cream, some avocado slices, some crispy tortilla strips. Just look at that. It is full of spice and goodness. It is the perfect bowl of soup. You have crunch from the tortilla strips, creaminess from the avocado, cheese and sour cream and chicken. I gotta dig in. So now that you have chicken tortilla soup down pat and it's in your recipe binder, let's get into the other 4 soups. So these videos were actually recorded in the past couple of years. So as you go through this video, you're gonna notice I look a little bit different. My hair is a little bit darker, but the soups are still the same soups that I made back then. I continue to make today because I love them. So enjoy and happy soup season. Today we're making broccoli cheddar soup. This is such a delicious recipe. It is so simple to make, only takes about 40 minutes, and the majority of the time it's just simmering away on your stove. So to make broccoli cheddar soup, the ingredients are super simple. Onion, carrot, broccoli, some spices, some chicken stock, a little bit of 2% milk, some half and half cream, sharp cheddar cheese, of course, some garlic and butter, and the one ingredient that might surprise you is a russet potato. So to get started, you want to peel and dice 1 carrot. And you want the pieces pretty small because this is just going to be flavoring in your soup. You don't want big chunks. Then you want to dice 1 small yellow onion. Then in a Dutch oven over medium-high heat, you want to saute your onions and carrots in a 1/4 cup of butter until they are soft. Then add 2 cloves of minced garlic and cook for about 1 minute or until fragrant. So while your carrots and onions are sauteing for a few minutes, now's a good time to cut up your potato and your broccoli. I like to cut my potato into small diced pieces so that they will cook quickly and then easily mash up into the soup. After a couple minutes, check on your carrots and onions, and if they're soft and translucent, you can move on with your soup. Add in a quarter cup of flour and cook the flour for 1 minute, stirring constantly, then gradually add your 2% milk, whisking to incorporate. Add the salt, pepper, and a dash of cayenne, then slowly add the chicken stock. Stir it well and add your diced russet potato. Bring the pot of liquid to a boil, then reduce the heat, cover and simmer for 10 minutes or until your potatoes are soft. I like my potatoes to be fork tender. That's how I know they're ready. So my soup mixture with my potatoes in it is just starting to come to a boil, but I want to get this going pretty good before I cover it up. So I'm going to turn down the heat to about medium low. Put the lid on my Dutch oven and set the timer for 10 minutes. So you want your broccoli pieces to be pretty small, bite-sized, because this is soup. So after I get the little florets pulled apart, I just kind of honestly just chop them up on my cutting board because I like my broccoli pieces in the end to be just kind of little specks, and they really don't disintegrate much once you get them in the soup. So this would be too big to have in soup. So kind of crunch it up pretty good. And it'll cook quicker that way too. And the amount of broccoli you put in your soup is really up to you. I know the recipe says 4 cups, but if you want it to be really full of broccoli, you could absolutely add more or less. I'm going to show you what 4 cups of broccoli looks like. About 3 broccoli stems about this size produced 4 cups of broccoli. And then once I get it stirred in my soup, if I need more, I have this extra here that I can add in. Okay, let's check our potatoes. So I'm going to take a regular potato masher and just go through here and mash up the potatoes. And the point of this is for the potatoes to thicken your soup, so you don't want your potatoes to stay in chunks like that. You want them mashed so it's consistent throughout your soup. But just mash it to the consistency that you like. So my potatoes are mashed up, my soup is exactly the way I want it, and I'm going to pour in my 4 cups of broccoli. Let's see what that looks like. Oh yeah, that's going to be plenty. So I'm going to get this stirred in really well, bring it up to a boil. Then I'm going to cover it and reduce the heat to a simmer and let this cook for about 10 or so minutes until my broccoli is as soft as I want it. Bring your soup back up to a boil again, reduce the heat, cover, and simmer for 10 more minutes. At this point, you want to taste test your soup. For seasonings, for consistency, you want to make sure that your potatoes and your broccoli are soft enough, exactly like you and your family like them. If you do need to add some more seasonings, now's the time to do that. Then turn the heat off of the soup, add in 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, 2 cups of extra sharp cheddar cheese, and 1/2 cup of half and half cream. Stir to combine everything, and your soup is ready to serve. Sprinkle a tad more cheddar cheese on top of your soup and you have the perfect meal. I can eat broccoli cheddar soup any time of the year. Year round, my family loves it. You could absolutely serve your soup with a piece of crusty bread on the side. I actually love my broccoli cheddar soup with some croutons on top. And my favorite croutons are Merzetti garlic butter, and I think they pair perfectly with my broccoli cheddar soup. Now, how about that for delicious soup? And tonight I'm making homemade vegetable soup. And this is not just any homemade vegetable soup. This is my mother-in-law's homemade vegetable soup. And I can guarantee that you have never had vegetable soup like this. It's a recipe that she shared with me over 20 years ago, and it is the only way that I now make vegetable soup. My mother-in-law's vegetable soup has bacon. Oh yeah, I said bacon. So let me tell you what you need for your vegetable soup. It is so easy. You just need 3 regular old potatoes. We're gonna peel them and dice them up into little bitty chunks. You need 2 cans of mixed vegetables. Now, I prefer the Del Monte mixed vegetables because there are no potatoes in here. I want to add my own potatoes. This one is just peas and carrots and lima beans and green beans. If you don't want to use your own potatoes, feel free to buy the other brand that has potatoes in it. I just think it's so much better with my own potatoes. You need 1 package of bacon, and we're going to make this so crispy and perfect and delicious. You need real butter. We're gonna use just a dab of real butter in our vegetable soup. And vegetable soup is all about the tomato products you use. And I only use homemade canned tomatoes and tomato juice. I know, I'm spoiled. Most people do not have access to homemade canned tomatoes. So at your grocery store, you can simply get tomato juice. Make sure it has no salt or pepper or seasonings added to it. It's just 100% tomato juice. You're gonna need 4 cups. And for the tomatoes, again, you need 4 cups. And you can get any brand, just look on the label. It will say whole peeled tomatoes. Again, you might see a variety that's gonna have seasonings or basil or salt and pepper. You don't want that. You simply want whole peeled tomatoes that are unflavored and 4 cups worth. So I'm using a Dutch oven to make my vegetable soup. You can use a big pot or a Dutch oven, but I have it on the stove. It's getting warm so that when my potatoes are cut up, my Dutch oven is hot and ready for me. I'm just chopping up my potatoes into bite-sized little cubes. My husband likes to have big pieces of potato and little pieces of potato. So I don't worry about getting them uniform. I'm just gonna cut up 3 large potatoes into bite-sized pieces. I'm gonna put 1 tablespoon of real butter into my Dutch oven, add my potato, and saute those for just about 4 to 5 minutes until they begin to get soft. And then we're gonna add our mixed vegetables from 2 cans, including all the juice in the can and all of our tomato products. I don't salt and pepper the soup. You could put a little bit of hot sauce in there if you wanted to. I don't like hot sauce in mine, but my husband does, so he always adds the hot sauce to his bowl instead of me adding it to the soup itself. You're gonna bring your soup up to a really good simmer and cook it with the lid just askew. You want a little bit of the steam from the soup to escape so that it will thicken the soup slightly, but you don't want it all to escape and all of your soup to disappear. So just put your lid slightly askew, keep it on a pretty good simmer for about 40 minutes or so until your potatoes are soft and tender. And meanwhile, we're gonna cut up our bacon into very small bite-sized pieces, and we're gonna cook our bacon in a skillet until every piece of bacon is perfectly crisp. Remove it from the skillet, drain any remaining bacon grease onto a paper towel, and just set your bacon to the side. So while my soup is simmering away and my bacon is cooking, I'll tell you a couple secrets, a couple tips. If you will put your package of bacon in the freezer about 10 minutes before you need it, it'll harden up just a little bit and it just makes it so much easier to cut. Your knife will just glide right through it. And after you're finished with your bacon, don't you dare discard that bacon grease. You better keep it and put it in your green beans. The next time you make green beans on your stovetop, a dab of bacon grease in your green beans That is the secret. This is going to cook for probably 45 minutes. The true test is when the potatoes are tender, just the way you like them. So when you get to that point, you're going to add your crispy bacon that you have removed from the bacon grease into the soup. Let it cook for another 2 to 3 to 4 minutes. The fantastic flavor from that bacon will work its way through the soup, and then put it in a bowl and serve it. It is that simple. Oh my goodness, you should smell my house right now. Woo! I'm so excited. We don't make soup all summer long. We don't make soup in the spring. It is a fall and winter thing only. That's it. And so it's cooled down, and this is now soup season. So thanks for joining me in the kitchen. So now you know how to make my mother-in-law's delicious homemade vegetable soup. It is so cold outside today, and all I can think about is a yummy, warm bowl of soup. So today in Renee's kitchen, we're going to make one of my favorites. It is baked potato soup. It is so easy to make, and people think baked potato soup is complicated, and people tend to only get baked potato soup when they go out to eat at a restaurant, but I'm going to show you just how simple it is to make. Your family's going to love it. I know everybody in my family loves it, and on a cold winter's day, it is perfection. So let's get going. Let's get in the kitchen and make baked potato soup. In today's video, I'm going to make enough soup to serve 3 or 4 people, depending on how hungry they are. So if you have a bigger family or want to have a bunch of leftovers, you may want to double this recipe. So to get started, I need 2 carrots, a yellow onion, and about 5 medium-sized russet potatoes. So I'm going to get my potatoes and my carrots washed, peeled, and then we're going to dice them up for our soup. I want to dice my 2 carrots fairly small so that they'll cook pretty quickly and evenly. I don't want big chunks of carrot in my soup. This is really just here for flavor. That's why small diced pieces are best. Pollux, I dropped a piece of carrot. I'm going to put my carrots over here to the side. Now that my carrots are all diced up, I'm going to dice up 1 small yellow onion. Now we're going to dice our russet potatoes. And again, pretty small dice size. Well, cutting up everything is the hardest part about this recipe, I promise. But now we're ready to head over to the stove with our potatoes and our carrots and onions. So your potatoes don't have to be perfect. We're going to smash them up later anyway. So earlier I fried up about 10 slices of bacon, but I reserved my bacon grease. I've had my Dutch oven on my stovetop, and I have had the heat on about medium, just so that it's nice and warm. So I add about 2 tablespoons of my bacon grease. Oh shoot, let's just do 3. For good measure, right? Bacon grease is never a bad thing. If you don't have bacon grease or don't want to use bacon grease or did your bacon in the oven, you can absolutely use butter instead of bacon grease. I'm a country girl, so I'm going to use my bacon grease. So I'm going to give my bacon grease just a minute to heat up, and then I'm going to add in my carrots and my onions. And I'm going to let these saute for, 3, 4, 5 minutes until they start to get soft. I don't want to overcook them. I don't want to brown them. I just want them to begin to soften. My carrots and onions have been cooking for about 5 minutes. They're soft. My onions are translucent. So now I'm going to add in all of my potatoes. Stir it together really good and let everything cook for about another 5 minutes, just to get a head start on your potatoes before we add our liquid. So my potatoes are starting to soften a little bit. They got a good head start here in the pot with the carrots and the onions. So I want to season everything really well with pepper and kosher salt And this is a lot of potatoes, so be generous with your salt. Give it another good stir. And add in 6 cups of vegetable broth or chicken broth, whichever you prefer. We want to bring this up to a low boil, and once it gets to the boil, we're going to let it go for 10 minutes. This is what I mean by a low boil. You can just see it percolating in there, but it's not all crazy over the top boiling. So let it go for 10 minutes just like that, and then we'll check our potatoes. While my potatoes are boiling, I'm gonna go ahead and chop up my bacon into little crispy bits, because this is what we're gonna use to top our soup with. Of course, when I was frying up my bacon, I had to make a couple extra pieces for my dogs, Maxie and Pollux. So while my soup is boiling, I'm gonna give them their bacon treat. Everybody happy? You got bacon? I don't have any more, guys. That was it. So it's been 10 minutes. I'm going to check my potatoes, and as long as they will kind of crumble when I press on them with my spoon, you want them to be tender, no crunchy potatoes. If yours are still crunchy, let them go another 2 or 3 minutes. You can pull out a big piece like that and just test it with your spoon. See how it crumbles up? That means it's soft, totally ready to proceed on with the soup. So next you need 1 3/4 cup of milk. Add 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour to your milk, and then whisk your flour really well into your milk. This is what's going to thicken our soup. So slowly add your milk and flour mixture into your soup, kind of giving it an easy whisk as you do to incorporate this into your soup. And we're going to let our soup cook for another 5 minutes. So we're almost there. Soup's almost ready. And this is the important part and the fun part. You need a potato squisher, mashed potato masher, one of these things. I love to get the consistency I want of my potato soup with a smasher, because it will squish my potatoes and mash them up into the liquid and give me a thick, creamy soup, versus chopping it up with an immersion blender or putting it in a blender or leaving the potatoes whole. That makes it liquidy and chunky. I want a smooth and thick soup. So I'm just going to take my smasher and smash my potatoes until it's the consistency that I like. So turn your heat down just a little bit and easily smash your potatoes. Make sure you don't splash this on you. It's getting thick and creamy, but we still have little chunks of potatoes. So I'm just going to keep going a bit more and cream it up. So this is perfect. It is thick and creamy. The potatoes are smashed up in there. This is exactly how I like it. I like a little bit of a kick in my potato soup, so I'm going to put a dash of sriracha, but you can totally leave that step out if your family does not like the spice. Then I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of half and half cream. If you just want to go crazy, you can use heavy whipping cream. I'm sticking to my half and half. Give it a good stir in there. So I want to make sure my soup is on low, and I'm just going to let it sit here for another minute or 2 and heat up that cream. But look at that consistency. You can see little pieces of carrots and onion, and the potato is all creamy in the soup. And in a few minutes, we're going to be ready to put this in a big fat bowl. Now, this is the best part. Everybody in my house likes to top their potato soup a different way. So I always have cheddar cheese, bacon, sour cream, green onions, and a big bowl of beautiful potato soup. If you like your soup spicy, you could always do a pepper jack. So I'm just gonna top the soup the way that I want it, and everybody else is gonna make their own bowl, and then we're gonna dig in. Let's see, in my bowl, I want a little bit of bacon. I mean, heck, who are we kidding? A lot of bacon. Cheddar cheese. A little dab of green onions. And a dollop of sour cream. Now it's time for the best part, the taste test. Look at this beautiful bowl of soup. It's wintertime goodness. It really is. Pure wintertime soup bliss in this bowl right here. There is nothing better than a hot, steaming, warm bowl of baked potato soup. You're welcome. It is freezing cold outside right now, and I have been thinking about a big, warm, steaming bowl of minestrone soup. Minestrone soup is a classic Italian soup. It can be made so many different ways. I'm gonna have carrots and onions and green beans and corn in mine with little ditalini pasta and ground beef. It's a tomato-based soup with onions and carrots, and it is so full of flavor. And I'm gonna make my minestrone soup in the crock pot. It's super easy. Pour in all your ingredients, let it just cook away for the day, and when you're ready to eat, your minestrone soup is gonna be waiting for you. So to make my minestrone soup, I'm gonna use ground beef, green beans, corn, carrots, an onion, lots of Italian herbs and spices, tomato products, and the secret is beef bouillon. That is what gives it such a great depth of flavor, and it makes it taste like you've been slaving away at your stovetop all day long when really you haven't. Your stuff's just been in the crock pot. So to my crock pot, I'm gonna add a 16-ounce can of tomato sauce and a 28-ounce can of petite diced tomatoes, along with a small can of tomato paste, and add my seasonings. Now I just eyeball my seasonings. I'm using basil, garlic powder, oregano, black pepper, and kosher salt. I'm gonna drop in 4 beef bouillon cubes and give this a good mix. Kind of break up my tomato paste in there. So after all my ingredients are in the crock pot, now I want to take 1 pound of ground beef, and I'm just going to use my fingers and kind of lightly crumble the ground beef into the tomato mixture and add in 6 cups of water. Now I know this seems like a lot of water, but when we add the pasta later into this dish, the pasta is really going to use up a lot of that water and the soup is going to be perfect, I promise. So add 6 cups of water. Give this a good stir. So the minestrone soup is going to cook in the crock pot on high heat for a total of 8 hours. So kind of think about it this way. In the beginning, we put everything in the crock pot except for the vegetables. Halfway through the cooking process, which is 4 hours in, we're going to add the vegetables, and then 1 hour before it's time to eat, or 7 hours into the cooking process, we're going to add our pasta. 8 hours later, we have the most delicious soup. It is hearty, it is so full of flavor, it's going to fill your belly, it's going to put a smile on your face, and it is so good when it is freezing cold outside like it is here today. So my minestrone soup has been in my crock pot on high heat. Now I'm going to add my vegetables. And the reason I wait a little bit to add the vegetables is because the green beans and the corn are vegetables from a can. Told you this was super simple, and really they don't take that long to cook. I am going to add fresh carrots and onions, and they don't take that long to cook either. So if you add your vegetables at the very beginning with all your other ingredients, I find that the vegetables just get a little bit too cooked and soft. So I wait about halfway through the cooking process, and then I add those 4 vegetables. You want to dice a very small yellow onion and 2 carrots. Make sure that you dice your onion and your carrots into very small bite-sized pieces. You don't want them too big. So I'm going to use 1 can of whole green beans. I am going to drain the juice from the green beans, and the green beans are pretty good size. So I'm going to kind of chop those up into bite-sized pieces and add that into your soup. Our carrots, onions, and our diced green beans. And then I'm using the corn from a very small petite size can. And again, I'm going to drain the juice. Give your soup a really good stir. Put the lid on your crock pot, set it on high, and let it simmer away. You can honestly tailor minestrone soup to your liking. If you wanted to add lima beans or white beans, you wanted peas in your soup, you could totally do so. These are just the vegetables that we like and prefer, but you can totally tailor it to what you and your family like. Pollux is hanging out in the kitchen with me, keeps going over and smelling the soup. Right, buddy? We're ready for soup. This soup recipe does make about 6 or 7 really big helpings of soup, so it's going to make a pretty good portion. My husband and I cannot eat all that, but it's kind of difficult to size down the soup recipe because once you've opened your cans of tomato products and vegetables, you don't want to throw them out. So go on and make the whole helping of soup, and then I'll show you at the end of this video how to portion it out and freeze it. And then you always have delicious soup in your freezer, which is so easy to heat up for a cold winter day. Now it's time for the final step. My soup has been in the crock pot cooking on high heat for 7 hours, and it's time to add our pasta. You don't want to add your pasta any earlier than an hour to 45 minutes before you're going to eat, because the pasta it really does puff up when you put it in the soup and it'll just get too soggy. I prefer to use ditalini. Ditalini is little teeny pastas because it is going to get bigger when it soaks up the liquid from the soup, and you don't want a pasta that's going to be too big to put on your spoon. This is soup after all. So ditalini is my pasta of choice. So this is the point in the cooking process where if you want to freeze some of your soup, this is what you have to do. Before you add your pasta to the soup, you want to taste test your soup. If it needs salt or pepper or seasonings, do it now. The soup is fully cooked. The ground beef is fully cooked, so it's fine to taste test. Before you add your pasta to the soup, you want to get out whatever soup that you want and put it in little self-serve containers so that you can put it in your freezer. You don't want to freeze it after you've added your pasta, because when you go to warm it up, the pasta just gets a little bit yucky and soggy, and it's just not good. So I like to get my soup out and freeze it before I add the pasta. Okay, everybody taste tested and ready to go, and we're gonna add our pasta. I'm gonna add a half a cup of pasta to my soup, stir it in really good, and let it continue to cook for 45 minutes to 1 hour. Just give it a test. When the pasta is the doneness that you like it, your soup is ready to serve. Definitely thickened up. Oh, look at that. See how thick it is? I'm so excited to enjoy my minestrone soup. I'm going to sprinkle it with some freshly grated Parmesan cheese and cook a big piece of crusty garlic bread and dig right in. Doesn't this soup look so delicious? I told you those were going to be 5 fantastic soups. I don't know which is my favorite. I love them all equally. They each serve a different purpose, have different ingredients, so varied in taste and texture. And these are just soups that I make all winter long on rotation. So yeah, I probably don't have a favorite. If you ask my husband though, he would probably say his mama's vegetable soup with bacon. To be expected, that's fine. It's one of my favorites too. But I love all 5 of these soups equally, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. So I'll see you back in the kitchen real soon.